Russian dictator Vladimir Putin's brutal force is unleashing the deadly attacks on Ukraine's people in months. At least 19 people were killed and more than 100 hurt in just a couple of days. Putin's army of terrorists, as I call them, retaliating after Ukraine blew up a key Russian supply route, a bridge to Crimea. The New York Post cover here from today, Putin versus playgrounds. Adding kids are in the line of fire is Mad Vlad targets civilians in Ukraine missile barrage. We know Ukrainian President Zelensky will not be deterred.
Україну неможливо залякати, тільки ще більше об'єднати. Україну неможливо зупинити, тільки ще більше переконати, що терористів треба знешкоджувати. Російська армія спеціально нанесла ці удари саме у ранкову годину пік. Це характерна тактика терористів. Вони хотіли нагнати більше страху і зачепити більше людей. Вони зачепили увесь світ.
Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the United States needs to stand by its ally.
The response should be what we should have been doing, frankly, since September, when we knew this invasion was going to take place. Give the Ukrainians the tools they need to convince Vladimir Putin that the cost of his continued aggression is too high. Instead, Stuart, we've dribbled it out. We waited 6 months to give them anything, and then we say we're going to give them artillery. We give them 4. We should be providing them the full firepower they need to impose real costs on Putin.
And he's talking about September of last year, not last month. Remember, we knew that they were massing those troops along Ukraine. Russia was. They had 150,000 of them on the border. Okay. President Biden just tweeted that he spoke with President Zelensky this morning. And this recent tweet says he pledged our continued support for Ukraine, an unwavering commitment to hold Russia accountable. Retired 4-star General Jack Keane, Fox News senior strategic analyst and chairman at the Institute for the Study of War. General, always great to have you on the program. You normally have a way for us to look at this that shows some sort of an end game. Where are we now with where Putin is, primarily?
Yeah, well, Putin knows he cannot, at this time, defeat the Ukraine military. As a matter of fact, as we have seen, the Ukraine military is taking back territory and driving the Russians further south. So what Putin is resorting to right now is trying to defeat the Ukrainian people, trying to crush their will. And that's what these attacks are all about. And he's also focusing certainly on the civilian population itself. In addition to that is the energy sector, because winter is coming and he wants to shut the lights out and take out as much electric grid as he possibly can to make it all the more difficult for the Ukrainian people. But listen, it's not going to work. The facts are that the Ukrainian people are steadfast. They've got enormous resolve. They are committed to this to the end. And what Putin is waiting for, he's made a decision, obviously, to mobilize some additional forces. He wants to double about the size of his ground force in Ukraine, which is around 200,000. He at least wants to get to 400,000 to 500,000. But it's likely not to be decisive. He wants to stop the bleeding. It's going to take weeks before that forces get here, and they're not going to be properly trained and not going to be properly led. They are going to be helpful, but they're not going to be decisive.
Yeah, they're going to be, you know, people in uniform who can stand up next to the guy who maybe has the training. And the reason I ask that is many of the Russians are fleeing. They don't want this constriction. They don't want a draft situation. They don't want to go fight in this war. They barely want the lives they have in Russia, because those have been disrupted too by all the sanctions. I mean, he had that many, and the Ukrainians killed thousands of Russian soldiers. So basically he's doing a putback now.
Yeah, I mean, they've killed, according to the Pentagon, close to 25,000 Russian troops and 65,000 wounded, and that number is actually growing. Yes, I mean, this is why Putin, remember, he named this a special military operation at the beginning. Special. And he said, well, the reason why we're going in there is to fix the Ukrainian genocide problem that they were causing on Russian minorities. All of that was a false narrative, but he didn't want to call it a war. He didn't want to give anybody impression that mobilization was going to take place and that new conscripts would have to be called up. But that is what is happening now, and that's why there's resistance. There's no fire in anybody's belly in Russia to go to Ukraine and put your life on the line to kill Ukrainians. Many of Russians can identify with the Ukrainian people. They've known them for years. They've traveled there on vacation into Odessa, to Crimea. And so there's not some perception in Russia that the Ukrainians somehow are an enemy and they need to be dealt with.
Yeah.
And certainly nobody is marching on Moscow. So there's no threat to Russia whatsoever.
Talk to me about the nuclear threat, though, from Vladimir Putin. First of all, I'm curious, how does that read inside the Kremlin? Like, are they thirsty for nuclear war, or is he just talking crazy?
Well, we don't know all the facts here, but I think when you take a look at it, I think it's mostly fear-mongering and brandishing it. What he really wants to do is fight a conventional war inside of Ukraine, double the size of the force, and hopefully get back on the offensive. That is what he sees over the next weeks or months. We don't see any preparations to use nuclear weapons. This is according to the Pentagon and our intelligence services, which have spoken openly about that, despite the fear-mongering that is going on and has been going on for some time. I don't think we dismiss it. I think the administration, I'll take them at face value, Harris. They said they have spoken to the Russian leadership and told them there would be catastrophic consequences, and they were specific about what that would be. The G7 has also said there would be severe consequences if Russia used a nuclear weapon. They made that statement today at the meeting, the virtual meeting that they had. So I'm assuming that Russia has some sense that what would happen. And they would lose the war if they use a nuclear weapon. The idea would be to win the war with it. They actually would lose it because now they're dealing with the United States and NATO.
Well, sure, because the fallout, obviously, the winds carry, the reach out, the potential of hurting people in our NATO allied countries is great at that point. So he takes on the world, basically, most of it. And of course, I asked that nuclear question and how big of a threat it is based on what the president of the United States calling for not calling it that, but saying it's Armageddon, what potentially could happen. But what you're saying is we really have reason to believe that there's no movement toward that yet, and that is good news. General Keane, thank you very much for being on the program.
Yeah, great talking to Harris, as always.
Thanks.